one of the other things that I kind of want to just talk briefly about, one of the other reasons I had to go away, and this is relevant because of what happened yesterday on Twitter, is that, you see, I have an issue. I have an issue where, I'm a people pleaser. And, for better or worse, getting people's attention in a positive way means a lot to me. And I found that during the years where I was running Revenge of the Fans and trying to basically kind of like expand and grow a whole empire from all this stuff, I became very reliant on your validation. I became very reliant on social media's validation. And in trying to appeal to the widest audience possible and get everyone who encountered me to like me. It's very immature. And honestly, though, I was using Twitter as almost like, a source for dopamine, a source for serotonin, a source for like, if I'm feeling crappy today, I could go on Twitter and tweet out a couple of things that are going to get 1 million retweets, and everyone's going to say, oh, this is so great and this is so wonderful and you're so great for telling us this or whatever. The rush of having all these people liking what I have to say, following my show, reading my website, all this sort of stuff, the high of that kind of started to become like a crutch. It became something that I was relying on too much. And I found that like I was starting to disconnect from my family, and I was starting to sort of recede into my own sort of like, I have a sort of depressive nature where I'm used to sort of isolating myself and getting lost inside my own head with my own fears and concerns and the whole world is against me sort of stuff. And my antidote for that, rather than investing in my family and in my friends and in my hobbies and in the things that bring me joy, suddenly I was just using Twitter and Instagram and all that sort of stuff to try to substitute for actually being happy. I was trying to create synthetic happiness by having a bunch of people I don't know tell me I'm so wonderful that, it became unhealthy. So part of my unplugging from things and deleting Twitter from my phone and just like kind of vanishing there for a while was because I kind of had to rewire my brain. I had to get away from being so worried all the time about what strangers think of me and about what others see when they see me, and trying so hard to be everything to everyone. I kind of lost myself in that because I was chasing the rush of your approval. And not just your approval is kind of important. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I do value your input and your feedback on the show and your notes on the things I talk about or your suggestions for the things I talk about, because you guys, you actually are taking the time to invest in me in a way. You're listening to me. Even though it doesn't cost you anything, I've cost you many hours over the years. If you've been following this, I've probably cost several days worth of hours. Days of your life have gone towards listening to the Fanboy podcast. And, in other words, I don't mind hearing what you guys think, because at least you guys know me a little bit. You have some sense of who I am and what I'm about. But what was getting dangerous was on Twitter, caring about what complete randos thought of me. And when, that's where I kind of had to draw a line and kind of cut Twitter out of the equation and just detach for a while. Because if you're going to be beholden to what mobs of strangers who don't know you think of you, your life is not going to be a very happy one. And that's why I also I worry about, the youth of our culture, of our society, because a lot of kids are very sort of isolated these days, especially because of the pandemic, and their whole life is social media and getting that social media approval. And I wonder, if it was bad on my psyche and I was in my mid 30s and I'd already been through a whole lot of crap in my life, and I still kind of fell victim to how addictive social media can be. And those sort of I like to call them black hole, echo chamber algorithms, and if I can touch on that for just a minute. Thanks for humoring me, by the way. But, I've talked about this before on Twitter. which is an ironic platform for this sort of rant, but it's a cautionary tale. All of these social media platforms, they have algorithms in them that they're monitoring your scrolling process, and anything that makes you stop scrolling gets added to your personal profile. Whether you liked it or commented it or retweeted on it, doesn't matter. The mere fact that you stopped on it, now they're like, this is going to, this content, this type of content is going to keep the user glued to their device. And our advertisers want all of our users glued to their devices. So the algorithm basically starts curating things for you. And it's all sort of extremes if you think about it. Because when you're looking through your feed, what are you most likely to stop on? Either something that you really love or something that you have a very strong negative opinion about. And God forbid, if you click on it and now start reading the comments, regardless of whether or not you comment yourself, if you're literally just sort of, if you're lurking on a thread, all of that lurking counts towards what the social media platform in question is going to push towards you whenever you come back to the app later, or even as you're scrolling through your feed. Your feed is live updating as you're scrolling. It's not sitting there stagnant. Everything you stop on, if you keep scrolling, a post or two later is going to be more from that person or more on that topic. And that's really dangerous, because then your social media really does become an echo chamber. And it's not just an echo chamber. And by the way, if for some reason that confuses any of you, an echo chamber means you're not really getting new information. You're just getting back at you things you already feel strongly about. So things that you tweeted about or followed that you love, you're going to get those. And things that you lurked on or commented against or railed against, that's going to be flagged. And all you're going to get are those two extremes all the time. Because Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they're not interested in the things that you're so-so on. They're interested on the things that you spend the bulk of your time on when you're on the app. And ultimately, with enough time, your social media gives you an entirely skewed view on what the world is and on what's really a big deal and what topics are actually being discussed all over the world, or all over your particular fandom. There are times where you're going to think, oh, wow, this topic is something that is hugely important, and everyone who's my age and into my kinds of things is talking about it. When in actuality, you might have just got pulled into a little wormhole, and now you have a skewed view on the importance of a particular topic or of a particular problem. And it was even affecting the quality of this show, I feel, because I was getting a distorted sense of which topics really are the hot topics. Because when you go on Twitter, you get inundated with the same like 2 or 3 things. So you start thinking, oh, these 2 or 3 things are the only things that geeks worry about right now. So I'm going to just talk about these all the time. And I feel like the show got very sort of narrow in scope because of that, because I was trying to cater to social media's version of pop culture. My Twitter's version of what film Twitter is what I was going by. But that's not necessarily what, the world cares about. Or not even necessarily sometimes what I cared about. I would force myself to I got to stick to these 2 or 3 things because this is all I ever see online. So this is the only thing that's going to get anyone to watch the show or listen to the show. And I feel like it started hurting. The echo chamber algorithm started hurting the quality of the show in a sort of roundabout, indirect way, because I wasn't really seeing everything. Suddenly, social media really creates these interesting blinders. And I learned that the hard way.